Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us for Binging the Force with the Rocky Mountain Fan Force, a live stream event. My name is James. This is a place where Star Wars friends get together, rewatch Star Wars shows, and discuss Star Wars content. Tonight, I'm joined by my friends Dale.
Hey.
Jonathan.
It's me.
Corey.
Good evening, fellow Star Wars intellectuals.
Corey from California. And our producer dude, Michael.
How do I follow that?
Yeah. Tonight we're going to be
Saw Gerrera impression.
Tonight we're going to be watching. We're going to be delving into the show Star Wars Rebels. It's the animated series. We're watching season 2, chapter 13 tonight. The Protector of Concord Dawn, and of course this hooks into our Mandalorian theme. And we're going to get a little even more background on kind of leading up to the current shows and stuff. Dale, could you give us kind of a general synopsis of what Rebels was about, and just kind of generally introduce some of the characters that we're going to be seeing tonight?
You bet. So we've been watching Clone Wars. Clone Wars was this idea from George Lucas that this conflict was galaxy wide and it affected all these people. There was, this big battle going on, the clone army, the droid army. We move ahead here in Rebels. We are just 3 years before A New Hope. So we're in the time of the rebellion. Think Andor. We're in that time where there's all these cells of a rebellion all over the galaxy. So our heroes in this series are the crew of the ship, the Ghost. So their pilot is Harrison Dula. They've got a Jedi, Kanan Jarrus, a younger possible Jedi apprentice to him, Ezra. We've got Zeb, who is a Lasat, looks like Chewbacca. And then we also have Sabine Wren, who is from her past, her clan is Mandalorian. So she's got a bit of Mandalorian in her past. Her family was involved with Death Watch. So it's an interesting person to be a part of this crew. But as far as like sticking to the Mandalore story, this is kind of important because we get to see what Mandalorians are up to just prior to the original trilogy. So that's why we're here. One more person from the Ghost crew is Chopper, a little droid who you can't understand what he says, but very important nonetheless. So.
Yeah, very much the R2D2, but very, very important character to the series. Very full of personality. Definitely has something to say, whether we speak basic or not.
Yeah. So in our Star Wars timeline, this takes about 3 years before Battle Before Yavin, correct?
Right. 3 years BBY.
Yep, 3 years BBY. Kind of give you a little context where we're at in the timeline.
Gotcha. And we already know that a lot of these characters are going to be showing up in the Ahsoka TV series. We've seen them in live action in the trailer.
Yep.
Sabine. I mean, there's definitely some differences there. There's in terms of different shows and different movies portraying Mandalorians, and there's definitely some things here that don't necessarily jibe later on in the Mandalorian, but in particular I kind of bit on the fact that her helmet doesn't connect. So it's like, we made a big deal in the Mandalorian of showing how like it's essentially a hermetically sealed system when they put their helmet on. She literally has her neck exposed and you could see up her helmet. So it sounds like, they were still kind of throwing stuff at the wall in terms of Mandalorians and figuring out, Mandalorian culture and the armor and stuff like that.
Yeah. Interesting to point that out, Michael. Totally.
Yeah. So those of you that are joining us tonight, I want you to look out for a reveal. Basically, Sabine is going to say or reveal who she's related to, and it's somebody that we've been following. If you join us for the other Clone Wars episodes that feed into this Mandalorian theme. So keep a lookout.
Cool.
Michael, the producer dude, you want to take us into our episode?
Get right into it. Okay,
let's do it. Season 2, episode 13, The Protector of Concord Dawn.
All right. Oh,
Okay.
so Rebels just does this cold open, just bam, you're right in the
Yeah,
action.
Yeah.
No
Right.
Tom Kane
No
voiceover.
fortune cookie.
No fortune cookie.
But that was their ship,
Usually-
right?
Yeah, the
Yes,
ghost.
that was the ghost.
That was the ghost. Okay, yeah.
That's the
'Cause
ghost.
I
There's
'cause I
Hera
recognized
and
it in the trailer.
Kanan.
And so
So
there,
this guy, Commander Sato, it's like he's part of the bigger rebellion,
Yes.
not
No.
part of their crew.
Yeah.
so essentially they're a
Rebels
rebel
was
cell. So kind of like with Rogue One, it's essentially a rebel cell who are working against the Empire, kind of leading up to where we get to in episode 4.
So that was Rex you saw, and
Yep.
Yes,
Hera is
much
the
older
green girl with
Captain
the-
Rex.
Yeah, and very much
Captain
a lot of
Rex, yes.
carryover from Clone Wars. I mean, Dave Filoni involved in both series. It's a continuation of the Filoni verse here.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. And something which you wouldn't think would make for exciting Star Wars, because when trade routes were brought up in Phantom Menace, it seemed boring. But yes, the plot of this episode is they want to go through Mandalorian controlled space for their route, their hyperspace route, basically, and they don't know if that's going to be safe to do. So they feel like they need to negotiate with the
Right.
Mandalorians.
Well, and
because
Hera
it's-
was just saying to grow the rebellion, we definitely we need the Mandalorians on our side. Yeah,
So there's Kanan, he's
Sabine
the,
was the blue hair, and
Yep.
Hera with the head tails. That's Kanan the Jedi there.
one of the surviving Jedis. Yep.
Yep. Yeah, he was
Like
the
Order
apprentice to
66.
Depa Billaba, I believe, and so I know that they did
Mhm.
flashbacks to show how he survived the Order 66.
one
And she's
thing
definitely got a very different design than what we've seen. I mean, it utilizes similar owl kind of pattern. There's an owl design in there, similar to Bo-Katan, but much more colorful than we've seen almost any other Mandalorian to date.
Well, that's because Sabine's an artist, and anybody watching the series understand that reference.
Gotcha.
Takes
And
one
it's a
artist to recognize another there, right, Corey?
That's right, Corey. They later in the series, they really lean into her artistic interests. Yeah.
And the Mandalorian we're introduced to here is Fen Rao, who I know comes back in the series later, and definitely plays a pivotal role. But this is his first appearance in the series here.
Yeah. As far as the location of Concord Dawn, that name is used later on when we find out that in the Mandalorian that Din Djarin was not from Mandalore. He never been to Mandalore. He was from Concord Dawn. So
Okay.
Oh, okay.
I forgot about that.
yeah. There's our title card.
Yep. Yeah, definitely a
Cool
cold.
Mandalorian ships. I love these ships. They're so cool.
Yeah. Those. I mean, I know they're. Bo-Katan referred to them as drop ships.
Yeah. Well, they're quite adept fighters too. It seems like.
Yeah, and we see them moving here in ways that we haven't seen in live action yet. That obviously they could do in CGI here.
Yep.
A lot more spinning than what we've seen them do in live action.
Yeah, they do a bunch of they rotate on their axis, and there we go.
But it's still it's building more and more to this lore of Mandalorians being these extremely skilled warriors.
Right.
Which they are.
Is Bo-Katan's ship like that in Mandalorian?
Yes.
Yeah. She flies one of the same ones. Yeah.
Same types. Yeah.
It maneuvers.
I thought the 8 fighters were a little more maneuverable, but maybe these pilots aren't as good as the.
I think they're just establishing how much better the Mandalorian fighters here are. It's the group called the Protectors that Fen Rao is the leader of here.
Let's like to have some good action here at the beginning too, right? I mean, first they're going to be enemies before they become friends, right?
Yeah, and she's even referring to them as that's it, Protector, follow me. Hera's kind of she's trying to draw their fire onto her so that the other rebels can escape.
Let's not leave out how totally killer that backdrop is with the planet exploding with all the asteroids moving through its field next to it.
Yeah.
Beautiful stuff, right?
Now, wasn't Sabine saying that was a result of civil wars among the Mandalorians? There was a whole set of dialogue about her talking about that they've essentially been at war with each other most of their history.
Yeah. Rebels. Rebels really made a jump in the quality of the animation, I think, from Clone Wars.
As it would,
It got really good.
But yeah,
more
that
realistic.
complete spinning
Yes.
ship as a way of attacking Hera and gets Hera. Yeah, she tried to
get Hera, right? The end for her. It's too bad.
It sure looked like it,
Yeah, it looked like
she was trying to make sure that everyone else could jump away. So it's like it definitely, it was a cliffhanger moment there of Hera's ship. It looked like it was about to explode. And she is a lead character, but it does make the jump. So somehow she's that good of a pilot that even that disabled, she still managed to make the jump.
Wow.
Yeah, something that we didn't know to expect was that this particular sect of Mandalorians is actually aligned with the Empire. I feel like that's kind of unheard of, that the Mandalorians already had enough infighting prior to the Empire being a thing, and now this just complicates things even more.
Right. Fenn is kind of taking bribes from them, and he's kind of working the system.
And it's 21B.
21B.
Yeah, A21B for sure.
Is that the previous model, A21B?
That's the medical droid, I assume.
It is.
Empire Strikes Back.
Oh, we know him originally from the Empire Strikes Back, but I'm sure there's several models like that all over the galaxy.
Right. Definitely a different voice than the one on Hoth.
Or Hera. Yeah, I mean, I think, seeing these characters when they make an appearance in Ahsoka is going to bring a resurgence in Rebels watching because
whoa,
maybe Shane will want to know, right?
Yeah, that's what we're doing here. Yeah, that's why we're doing it. Yeah.
No, for sure. But I'm just saying, when you see Ahsoka, the series, and all these characters start coming out of the woodwork, it'll make for a resurgence.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see this.
And Clone Wars was a show where you could kind of like pop in and out of different episodes or different arcs, and there wasn't a whole lot of like progression in the show. But Rebels was definitely a lot more like if you started at the beginning and you follow it beginning to end, there's much more reward for seeing that character progression.
Absolutely.
Much more of a serialized story. But interesting how Rex has now transcended so many series, because if you think Clone Wars, Rebels, I'm trying to think of other ones, Bad Batch, obviously,
Well, actually, I didn't know pre the episode where they introduced Rex that he was even in it. I was delighted.
Yeah.
When they ended up showing up like that, so I was like, oh man, these guys just don't quit. You're right, the Filoniverse. I mean, having someone at the helm for both series made all the difference in the world at the quality of this show, and just a beautiful flow from Clone Wars. So then there's Chopper.
And definitely showing the personality, because everyone wanted to go on the mission with Kanan, and he didn't want to bring anybody, but he told Chopper he's coming, and Chopper doesn't want to go, and Chopper makes it known very clearly that Chopper does not want to go on the mission. And, everyone else does.
It's like Chopper is like if George Collin were an astromech. That's what you have.
Yeah, Chopper is very different than R2. He's not as fearless. He's kind of more reserved, and he's kind of a chicken sometimes. But he does rise to the occasion when he needs to.
Definitely got more attitude.
Yeah, he's a funny character.
So the mission Kanan's going on here to that half exploded world there is to really try to continue the mission of getting the Mandalorians on their side, really. Whereas Sabine, who is stowed away on his ship here, her mission is, I want to get the guys that hurt Hera.
Yeah, she's out for revenge.
So they basically have cross purposes here.
Oh, sure.
And that was my question, was maybe for tonight was, they're going to take very different approaches to this situation. Kind of what do you think, maybe the audience kind of think about what's the best, maybe what would be the best approach?
The good cop and bad cop approach.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, this is an extremely risky plan. If you ask me, he's going into the hornet's nest, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
Right. And we have somewhat established that there's a historical disagreement between Jedi and Mandalorians, that they have been at war with each other in the past. And so, a Jedi walking into their compound trying to get them on the side of the rebels is not an easy sell.
Yeah.
No, it's not, but also it's, part of Kanan's training as a Jedi to do this.
Mediate, create peace. Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
they're both kind of reverting back to their training here, and
Yep,
kind of
his
the way they
default
were
is always
brought
going to
up or
be
whatever.
pursue peace and
Yeah.
do things with justice.
That's right. I mean, Kanan keeps the Order alive because at this point, we don't even know how many are even left in the universe. So,
Yeah, but through the course of the series here, I mean, you could see already 2 seasons in how close Kanan and Sabine are, and that's a Jedi and a Mandalorian working together on the same team. So
Yeah.
so there's inherent conflict there, but also some really great character stuff.
Yeah, and all these characters in Rebels here, they're all very individual, right? They come long histories before they started to band together as a team.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I haven't watched enough to know. Like, I think the character I know the least about probably at this point is Hera, and she seems to be such a lead character in the show. And I'm sure they get into her backstory about, how she got to be one of the most respected pilots in the Rebel fleet there.
Yeah, if you stick around for the series, you'll see the love story. I won't give it away, but
she's the mother
really
of the
sweet.
group.
Yeah, I definitely got that.
She is, yeah, she's
definitely with Sabine. She's unquestionably a mother figure.
Yes.
And I guess probably Ezra too, right?
Oh, especially Ezra, because he's the youngest. He's the baby.
Definitely. I know, like, the first season or a lot of the through line is the training of Ezra Bridger to become a Jedi under Kanan.
Yeah.
Yes, but even Kanan didn't fully finish his own training, so
right.
And that creates its own set of problems. Again, without spoiling it, does create its own set of problems for this series. So, but you know what? Again, it's well written, it's well acted. I loved it. I couldn't say enough about it.
Yeah. It was really
So
good.
is all this worth it from a strategic point of view for the Rebels to try to get the Mandalorians on their side, losing people?
Can't they go around?
I guess.
Apparently
you could do a curve in the hyperspace routes.
Apparently this hyperspace route is that important.
Bypass?
Well, and also too, the Mandalorians, she was right. They would be good friends to have in a rebellion against the Empire.
Right.
So why not go to one of your strongest adversaries?
Oh yeah, if you can get them on your side, that's a powerful.
We know the Empire
ally.
fears Mandalorians.
We do.
Ooh, they're laying their cards on the table. It's like an old Western here, right?
Yep. Put his lightsaber on because he didn't necessarily know he was a Jedi.
It's mic drop. Yeah.
My master did lava. Yeah, he tells Fen Rao that he does respect him because Fen Rao did fight in a previous battle during the Clone Wars. That was why a lot of the characters here respected him as a person. And even though here he's in the position of working with the Empire, taking money for the Empire, so they have a belief, and Kanan definitely is operating on the belief that we've established that he is an honorable person from his fight, from his time in the Clone Wars. We should be able to turn him back from working with the Empire here.
And he's a good diplomat, right? He saunters in there and he's like, "We have history together. Let's talk, man."
Yeah.
Yep. And that is the Jedi training, yeah. Where she wants to blow stuff up. I mean, that's she's pretty clear about the fact that she's planting bombs on each of their ships. She wants to blow stuff up.
Yeah.
But did she bring enough bombs?
Kanan's Obi-Wan.
What, Dale?
Did she bring enough bombs? We'll see.
Right.
Well, apparently he asked her earlier there, right? Did you bring enough? And of course,
yeah.
The
Battle of Maigitu that Kanan is referencing, was never shown in Clone Wars or anything on screen. It was in 2 issues of the Kanan comic strip. So if you want to know more, Kanan issues 10 and 11. So
there's always more in the EU.
Man,
so there was an actual
I'm telling you.
There was an actual Kanan comic book.
Yes, I think it was 12 or 16 issue run. It was good, to get more backstory for these characters. Speaking of the Jedi that never finished their training, I mean, isn't that all Jedi? Do we ever see a Jedi fully finish their training?
Well,
at least in the timeline where we're dealing with the
Clan Red House.
They never get to.
What I meant was that he hadn't been knighted.
Yeah,
that's what I mean. You're right. Your training forever goes on for Yoda. What 900 years, right, or 800 years? So
yeah, because they don't do a ceremony, do they? They've never shown a.
Well, they have. They did. When Anakin became a knight, they did show the ceremony. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I guess. Okay.
In the very first Clone Wars, that was the Tanatovsky animated series, little 5-minute clips. And that was where they actually knighted Anakin.
Yep.
Yeah, no, we've definitely seen Jedi graduate and become full Jedis. It's just not since Order 66.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
All right, y'all missed the big reveal that we were talking about earlier. Sabine Wren, Clan
It is.
Vizsla.
Daughter
yes.
to.
Yeah, and that's another kind of discrepancy there in terms of not having everything figured out for the Mandalorians, that they were figuring it out as they went along. In that, I mean, in other instances of us learning about Mandalorian culture, we've not heard of another instance of house and clan being two different things. That she's part of house. I may be getting these reversed. So correct me if I'm wrong.
Wren.
But she's one Ren, neither house or clan Ren, but she's house or clan Vizsla.
Yeah, Clan Wren is allied with House Vizsla.
Okay.
So then, like, they recognize that, but then they're also like, "Oh, that's part of Death Watch. Maybe we don't like
Right.
you."
Well, because we'd established from the very first appearance of Death Watch, and the Clone Wars episodes that we reviewed, was that House Vizsla is Death Watch, essentially is the leadership of Death Watch.
Yeah.
So her family is allied with Vizsla, but she's not a Vizsla. But she's not in that same family. That's just her family is allied. But that's this distinction between house and clan. I think, like in other instances of Mandalorian culture, I don't think they've made that distinction. I think house and clan are pretty synonymous.
It's very Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Yes. And then when you bring the foundling aspect into, that the Mandalorian TV series did, that's its own thing. That's its own clan
Right.
altogether.
Yeah. That Mandalorian is not, a people, it's a creed, it's not a planet, It's
Right.
it's a set of beliefs that you subscribe to.
Yeah. Of course, Kanan's trying to kind of diffuse the situation here, and
But in this time, it's more than just a set of
Not
beliefs. Like, it
listening.
really is like people and houses and government and
Yeah.
more organized in that way,
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a difference from what we've seen in other portrayals of Mandalorians.
Mhm.
Yeah, like I said, I think a
But-
lot of it is like there wasn't this grand plan where they had everything figured out that's going to cover all the series, including the newer series and everything. I think they were just kind of rewriting some of those rules as they were going along.
Yeah,
That's fine.
but Sabine's plan, I mean, it works here. I mean,
it does.
it actually accomplishes more, because I don't think it was going to work. Kanan's approach was, well, the
Right.
enemy of my enemy is my friend, and that guy's like, nope, don't care.
Yeah,
Yep.
that
You're not
plan
paying
failed.
me.
Yeah.
The almighty credit speaks louder.
Yeah, so we kind of see here a balancing of diplomacy with blowing stuff up. You need
Classic Star Wars.
You need a little bit of both. Yeah, and he just told her, you can't kill anybody, and she said, you love making it hard for me.
Well, yeah.
Does her gun even have a stun setting? Does
Probably,
Mandalorian-
Probably not.
Probably not.
I'm sure it does.
I think a Mandalorian might say, what's the purpose of a stun setting?
Right?
If you were bounty hunting, I suppose it would matter to you.
Yeah.
That man.
That's true.
Awesome jet action. This is.
I don't know. It's kind of risky to try to stun someone. What if you miss and then you
Yeah.
could have killed them and then they shoot
Better
you?
be a crack shot then, Jen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So of course, the one ship she didn't get to blow up because she didn't get to it in time was Fen Rao's ship.
That's good storytelling.
That's we gotta have that showdown here.
So we've got Kanan literally holding on to the side of a plane. I think we've seen that before. I think we've seen Mando do
Oh, but let's not go too high.
that.
Tom Cruise, he can do it.
Yes, if Kanan was played by Tom Cruise, there would be no problem here.
Yeah, that's how you handle that.
Well, they've cast him for the new show, so you just haven't seen that yet.
Oh, geez. Please no.
Yeah, the voice actor for Kanan is actually Freddie Prinze Jr.
That's Junior, right?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I forgot that.
Oh.
Yeah,
I
lightsaber
love
right
seeing
through the
that.
console.
Disabling a ship with a lightsaber, that's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
That's
Yeah, it is.
ballsy. Is just literally putting a lightsaber right through the console just
Yeah.
to disable the ship and make it crash.
I just want to know if Jedi have a fear of heights because they're always on top of ships, and I don't know. I would black out. I would
That
like
definitely has to be part of the training. Yeah,
high altitude training.
They're going into space, man. They're not stuck on a continent.
Yeah.
Right.
well, just even operating in Coruscant. I mean, how much have we shown like people flying around in Coruscant and jumping from ship to ship and
Oh, yeah,
jumping
for sure.
from ship to ship and stuff?
Because they have the Force, man, and they're not afraid.
The Force is my
Driver's Ed
ally.
course too, where they learn to fly spaceships and stuff too.
Yeah, so here Fenrau makes a decision. Stand down. There's no need.
Yeah.
So what do you think? What was the thing that actually turned him around?
I think it's just that he can see how much the rebels can kick ass here.
Yeah, I think they proved they
on the wrong side. I mean, it's not like they had any sort of moral arguments.
Yeah.
It was more just like we can hold our own
we're
and
capable. Yeah,
on the side of right.
Yep.
Welcome to the rebellion. Yeah, I'd wonder if it would be just the fact that him seeing a Mandalorian and a Jedi working together, and neither it needed both sides. It needed diplomacy and blowing stuff up. Then he kind of sees the combination there, as something of value, and definitely more valuable to him than his relationship with the Empire.
Well, and Kanan didn't. He delivered. He showed them that there's another way.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things called back to the beginning of the episode, right? When who was it? It was Sato was like, a show of force, and Sabine was like, yeah, show of force and what is needed and what they'll respect. And so they got both diplomacy and a show of force in this.
Yeah, it took both sides. Yeah. And Hera saying, Sabine, you're sounding more like a Jedi than a Mandalorian. And he looks to both of them and he says, I guess I've been raised right. And he looks at Kanan. So in between Kanan and Hera, I mean, that's basically mom and dad.
Yeah.
Well, this is where they all laugh together and they freeze at the end. Huh?
Yeah.
Right. Totally.
Like old Police Squad episodes, yeah.
But the Mandalorians working with other groups, that's something we see come back in Mandalorian, the TV series, seasons 2 and 3, that if you want to be a leader, you can't just stick with the small group of people. You've got to reach out of your comfort group a little bit and ally yourself with, whether it's Jedi or bounty hunters or former rebels, whatever it is.
And that's sort of the concept for Rebels too, right? Like this show is showing the progression of individuals to small groups, to larger groups, to that the rebel cells, to trying to just like gather people together in this loose rebellion that you see in Rogue One. And that's really hard to do, right? And so it's good to have this show that shows that kind of progression of just trying to get everybody moving in one direction,
Yeah, and leading to what we saw, because our first introduction was 4, 5, and 6, where we saw at that point there's a somewhat cohesive rebellion. There's a command structure. There's an actual army. There's there's basically ground forces and air forces and everything. That it is a cohesive organized rebellion. But it didn't start that way.
Yeah, but I think there is also a lot of
with Andor and with Rebels and everything. What we're seeing, with Rogue One, with Andor, with Rebels, we're seeing that it took time to get there. It took 20 years to basically, the rebellion was always there from the end of Episode 3 on. You already had those senators who, were the core of planning to start a rebellion at that point. But that was a seed that took 20 years to grow to get to where we get to in Episode 4.
Yeah, and there's. I'm trying to think, when the rebellion is like coalesced into a more military operation, an organized. I think there's still even groups that are have different approaches. Like Saw Gerrera had a very different approach, kind of a terrorist. I'm going to be really heavy-handed. I'm going to attack, whatever I can and stuff like that. And then other groups have kind of a different approach.
Yeah, like an extremist versus like a diplomatic approach.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or even just their military method. Saw Gerrera was, I guess, like a fanatic. We see in what movie? Andor.
Rogue One. Oh, Andor.
Yeah, Andor. There's we see in Andor. There's who's the guy that recruits him. He has a different approach, and then they talk about Saw Gerrera too. They encounter him, and he's got a different method. So I don't know. That's kind of interesting that they try to bring all these approaches and kind of bring them together into one unit.
Yeah, and that even within that, there are factions. There are still rogue elements.
Sure.
No pun.
And also, too, as I understand it, Rebels takes place 5 years before the beginning of A New Hope. So,
well, yeah, at this point, because we're a couple seasons in, so 3 years BBY, I guess.
Yeah, it's real close. Yeah,
amount of time they still have to build a rebellion. by the time it gets to the intensity of A New Hope.
Yeah, yeah.
We don't know how
Wow,
long
man.
your years are compared to ours, but yes, it's supposed to be just 3 years away from Rogue One and the Battle of Yavin right now.
Right.
So it's getting
And
close.
even then, it takes time, right? Like even if you have everybody moving in that same direction, you'll still have these other people who don't totally align with you with what you're trying to do. They're like, okay, well, I will conveniently be your friend if we're both moving in the same direction, like the Rebels and the Mandalorians here sometime, right? And that's just the way that life works. Sometimes you don't always have people totally on board with you, but like you said, if your enemy of your enemy is your friend, then I will temporarily have a truce with you, and we will be on this path together. But at some point, just anticipate we will go on our separate paths there, Robert.
Yeah.
Well, and you have to have victories along the way. I mean, it's a tenuous alliance at that point that could be one failure away from just completely collapsing or breaking up, or people saying, "Well, you don't know what you're doing. We just had a big failure." You know, you have to build success upon success to actually sustain that cohesiveness. You know, and build that group together.
I mean. And think of like American history, right? So like, when some rebels in Texas lost at the Alamo, right? Like that became almost a rallying cry for people in Texas and people in America to be like, okay, well, remember the Alamo. Maybe in the Star Wars universe, maybe they're like, remember Scarif, and remember some of these horrors that this oppressive government, this oppressive force has, and you'll get more people on your side and more people to align with you and move in that direction.
Yeah,
that's the power of martyrs.
Yeah, and I think the story of the rebellion is you're bringing all these different species. The Empire's a little more humanoid, centered. They dominate. They make the rules. Thrawn is kind of an outlier. It's very much about kind of the humans running the operation, but Rebels is more about we're kind of all in it together, the entire galaxy, to give it to the Empire and to try to defeat them. And those differences and stuff actually give us strength.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't count Jedi, because Jedi are almost like an alien race. I mean, it's really the core main cast of Rebels contains no regular humans.
Yeah,
for Ezra and Kanan, though.
Right.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They're Jedi. They're human, but they're Jedi. They're something else.
The superheroes.
Yeah.
At this point in the story, I mean, we're 15 years removed from the birth of the Empire. So at this point, I mean, they've pissed off the entire galaxy. Every world has been affected by the Empire.
In that short of time. Yeah.
So they're certainly, even though they're not, super organized yet, and haven't really fought back too much because Rogue One and the crawl to A New Hope is, Rebels have won their first major victory. They don't have that major victory under their belt yet, but they're working their way there.
Yeah.
So James, one of the things you mentioned at the beginning was our kind of surprise family tree reveal here of Sabine being a part of House Vizsla and this kind of whole Game of Thrones, Mandalore tree, house interconnectivity that happens with those Mandalorians. But like rewatching this episode, there's that big reveal, but it didn't feel like there was like the thrust of the episode was not a payoff from that. Like that's an interesting detail, but it wasn't what this story was about. Right? Like that's nice, but maybe that'll pay off later.
Well, do they actually reference her as Sabine as being Duchess Satine's daughter?
Oh, God, I don't remember.
No,
same house.
She's not Duchess Satine's daughter.
Not direct descendant.
Okay.
Yeah.
She's aligned with Duchess Satine.
No. In fact, later on in the series, we will meet more of her family and her mom and everything. So.
Oh, okay, that's right. Okay.
Right, and at this point, Clone Wars season 7 hadn't happened when this was put out, so we didn't know how it ended up with the Wrens losing power on Mandalore, Death Watch aligning themselves with with Darth Maul, and then eventually the Empire taking over Mandalore. Like we haven't seen all that play out yet. When Rebels was produced.
One too is like, hey, wait, how is Rex not like wanting to kill? Like, how did Rex escape Order 66? Because that was one of the first things I thought of when I realized what the character was. I'm like, how is that even possible?
Yeah, that was all in season 7 of Clone Wars. Yeah.
Right.
So I was like,
Rex is a badass. That's why.
well, no, I know. I mean, we can do that, but it's like at that point, we just didn't have any idea. It is such a. I was thinking about it the other day. I swear to God, Star Wars has to be one of the most expansive stories that we can think of in modern and even ancient literature.
Yeah.
It's insane. I mean, I love the MCU, right? Because all of it intertwines. But man, there is so much content. It's insane.
And there's so many stories to be told within that, right?
They're still coming.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Like if you think about it, from when we saw clone troopers at the end of episode 3, well, there's no clone troopers in episode 4. So, is their story just over? So, to get to see clones in Rebels, and then now we've got, Bad Batch. It's going to be a 3-season long story. They're filling in that gap of, well, what did happen to the clone troopers after Revenge of the Sith?
Well, Corey, I don't know if you've heard, but they actually retconned Rex into Return of the Jedi.
Huh.
No.
Yes. So when there's rebels that are there at the shield generator, and like Han Solo runs around with a bunch of rebels there, they'll get captured. Like there's one of them who's got like this old white beard, right?
Oh, okay, yeah, I remember him. Okay,
That's Rex.
cool. That's awesome.
Dude, nice. That's
Interesting.
Cool. No, I know.
That is interesting.
Great character.
Well, cool. Good episode. Good intro to Rebels here.
Yeah. So it to me, like Rebels, there's a lot of episodes for Rebels I don't feel that had the fun of Clone Wars. Like Clone Wars, I feel 99% of those episodes you could describe as a fun watch. Some of these things in Rebels, where it's kind of a slower build, and it's like, well, where is this going? And well, by the end, it pays off. But
I think that's
just a standalone episode are tougher.
I mean, that's indicative of kind of modern TV shows, modern storytelling. Everything's now more serialized. That's kind of the trend. And so I think Rebels being made several years after Clone Wars, I think really reflects that serialized storytelling is now kind of the standard, and standalone episodes are now more of an anomaly.
Well, it was a joy to have a glimmer of what could be once again, which is what I love about Rebels as well. It's definitely got a lot of things going on in it, but it definitely is keeping the lore of the Jedi, as the Guardians of the Galaxy. Right. But yeah, no, I think I love the story between the two of them as far as Master and Apprentice. So I'm just seeing that stuff rolling over time and time again with new players.
Yeah. So thank you very much for joining us tonight. Upcoming events for the Rocky Mountain Fan Force, and reminder, we're kind of a chill group that gets together and talks about Star Wars and hangs out. We are all going to the on April 29th, this Saturday at 3:35, the AMC Westminster Promenade. We're all going to be trying to sit in row G. If you can sit near us, that'd be awesome. I checked on tickets, and we had plenty of tickets left for this Saturday for that showing. So go ahead and get a ticket for this Saturday, Return of the Jedi. Come watch that with us at 3:35 in Westminster. And let's see, do you guys need to introduce anything else? You can find our merch at Binging the Force at spreadshop.com. You can find us on YouTube, Anchor, and Facebook, of course, Rocky Mountain Fan Force.
What are we doing next?
Next episode is going to be, next week is going to be season 3, episode 11, Visions and Voices. So join us next week for that.
I believe that starts to get into Sabine with the Darksaber, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Great.
So we're binging through, if not chronological episodes, we're binging episodes of shows related to Mandalorian lore.
Thanks for joining us tonight, guys.